Hi, my name is Mary, and while I'm not new to YouTube, it has been quite a while. I'm still a thrifter and a reseller, and I'm also still a senior living operations strategist. But over the last few years, I have taken up another passion. And and while I consider myself a multi-passionate entrepreneur, this passion found me because, after all, the universal cat distribution system picks on its own people, right? So now we're not going to start today on how I got into this new passion. We'll save that story for another day. Nor am I going to tell you about the story of the little kitten that I am going to talk about. However, I will give you a very brief summary. Her name is Miracle, and I found Miracle in a parking lot in one of the assisted livings that I was working in. And Miracle was maybe 1 or 2 days old. I found her, unfortunately, next to a deceased sibling. And in fact, we weren't even really sure if she was alive. So my coworker went into the building to go get some gloves because we didn't know if she was bleeding or injured in any way. And I stood there and I watched her, and I bent down and I looked real close and I kind of poked her a little bit. And next thing I know, she's stretching and yawning, and I'm like, you're okay. So I just picked her up. And into the building I went. Didn't wait for my coworker. So for the first time in my life, I found myself to take care of a bottle baby newborn kitten. And let me tell you, if you've ever had to do that, it is really, really, really hard. In fact, bottle baby kittens that do not have a cat mom, they often don't survive. So you have to have somebody that is very dedicated. And quite often the shelters, they don't have these people, that can literally every 2 hours feed a baby kitten. And that's what we were having to do, I and my coworkers. So what we did was we took turns because, of course, we didn't want to get fired, literally for the lack of sleep of getting up every 2 hours and feeding this kitten. So she and I would take turns. She would take her one night. I would take her one night. And we would take care of her feeding. And then, of course, in the office, we would do that during the day too. And pretty much once we fed her and we stimulated or had her go to the bathroom and everything, then she would go back to sleep. And but at about 10 days in, that was the first time I noticed that little Miracle was extremely bloated. Her belly was bloated, and that was our very first visit off to the emergency room hospital. And throughout the next several months, um, little Miracle went to the vet several times. She would go to the vet of where I lived because I lived 4 hours from where I was working right then. She would go to the vet there on the weekends if I felt like I was panicking and didn't know what was wrong with her, or she would go to the vet in the area of where I was working. Love that vet there, but unfortunately, I'm no longer in that community anymore. But uh, the or I think even a couple of times I even took her to the emergency room because I thought I saw blood in her urine, and plus she was running a fever. So, or just simply because I was a nervous mom, and that's what nervous moms do, right? Sometimes we run our babies off to the hospital or to the doctor, even though maybe they didn't necessarily need it. So as you can tell, I spent a lot of time, money, effort, love on this little black kitten that, of course, we named Miracle. And what I didn't tell you is that we have 12 cats. And Miracle was number 12. And in order to make life easier on us, my neighbor suggested this mobile vet, and we took her up on it. And this mobile vet came to the house, and we thought, oh, this is going to be great. We can get the well visits taken care of for all the cats by this mobile vet. And we had them come to the house so that little Miracle could have her second dose of vaccines. And at this point in time, Miracle was no longer coming with me to travel. I was still going for a week at a time, but at this point, she was very energetic, she was playful, she was a handful. And it just made more sense for her to stay with the other cats so that she could play with them. And they were so good with her. So that was the decision that we made. This mobile vet came, and I don't know if it was by accident. I'm sure it was. I mean, I can't imagine any other reason. But Little Miracle was supposed to get 1 ml of vaccine, which is about this size. This is 1 ml. What Little Miracle got was more like 4 mLs. And my husband saw this, and it was completely full. And he asked the question, he said, "Are you giving all that to her?" And they're like, "Yeah." And of course, he didn't know how much she was supposed to get. But it was definitely a container this size, not this size. So, but again, you think even maybe with too much vaccine, she still would have been okay. But little by little, hour by hour, Miracle got worse. She started to be very lethargic, very withdrawn. She started losing a ton of weight. Now, this was Monday morning, and I'm going to show you a picture of what she looked like on Saturday. This was on Saturday. And on Monday morning, she had the vaccine, and day by day, my husband's calling me. He says, "Miracle's not looking too good." And I said, "Well, that's normal for a vaccine. She's probably going to be a little lethargic for a couple of days." And by Friday morning, he really didn't like what she looked like. So Friday morning, he took her to our walk-in vet because they have walk-in vet hours. So he took her into our walk-in vet. And they immediately thought, the vet immediately thought she had been over-vaccinated. She didn't look well at all. He gave her a stimulant. He gave her B12, this B12, and gave that to her as a food stimulant. But I got home that night, and I couldn't believe what I saw. Miracle looked like a walking skeleton of fur. That's what she looked like, a skeleton with fur. And I was just devastated. I couldn't believe that my beautiful kitten that I had worked so hard on and spent so much money on and just had loved every single little piece of her, just looked this bad. In fact, she looked so bad and was so lethargic and so withdrawn that I wasn't even sure she was going to make it through the night. So I was starting to panic, and my husband knew I was very upset. And we do have a 24-hour animal hospital nearby. And at this point, it's 11 o'clock at night. And he asked me, he said, "If you want to go, we can take her to the 24-hour animal hospital." And I said, "Okay," through tears practically. Because at that point, I really didn't think she was going to make it through the night. And at that very moment, she comes running into the bathroom. She had this little bit of boost of energy, and she comes running into the bathroom, and I look at her and I say, "Or maybe she's going to be okay." And so we decided to wait. And the next morning, she seemed to have a little bit more energy. So then I got to work. So then I started doing all this research about food stimulation and everything else, because I knew at this point in time, she was starting to pep up just a little bit. She was still weak, extremely weak. But I was starting to see the little old Miracle that I, used to know. So I started looking up food stimulants, and this, of course, was one of them. But this was another, and this is called Redi-Cal, and it looks like a brown gel. And you put it on. You can either put it on your finger, and they can lick it off the finger, or you can put it on their food. But Little Miracle loved this. And what's kind of funny is it looks like a gigantic vaccine And but she loved it. She ate it, and then of course it's a food stimulant. So then they start eating more of their food, and pretty much every food in sight. So much so she almost didn't leave any for the rest of the cats. But I was starting to see some major change in her, so I was super happy about that. We did try this, and this was okay, but this just worked so much better. They also had like a container, and it had powder in it, and I bought this as well, and that did work as well. But the reason why I recommend this over the powder is, and again, it could have been because maybe we got liquid on the spoon when we took it out. Um, or maybe it just didn't like oxygen. It didn't like oxygen. I don't really know, but in a very short amount of time, the powder got hard, and it didn't go over their food nicely. And we had only used about a third of it, and it just, to me, it wasn't good anymore. So we didn't continue using it, and we threw it away. So to me, that was a waste. When this one worked so well, so we we continue to use this one. But I've now bought this several times. We put it in their food all the time. If and then every now and then one of the other cats, maybe is having a bad couple of days, and for whatever reason seems to be a little lethargic. We put a little bit of this in their food, and next thing you know, they seem to be great. So and again, this is not a sponsorship. I am not sponsored by this product. I just think it's a miracle worker if you're trying to put some weight on a sick cat or kitten. Again, highly recommend it. I'll put it down in the put a link for it down in the description below. Um, but I felt pretty passionate about it. I want to start making more videos on my cats because I have so many of them, and they just make my life such a joy. But I learn a lot of things, and I like to share those things with everybody. So, but so I thought I'd share it with you. And but thank you so much, and I will look forward to going over the next video with you. Catch you next time. Bye bye.